Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Lineage Break, a Grand Archive TCG podcast. I am your host, Cam. With me, as always, is Trusty Steve.
Oh, God. I knew it was coming eventually. Yeah.
I forgot yesterday.
Hi, Cam.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Now, I need a chat YouTube viewer, all of you. I need you to walk with us on Steve's new name and let us know how you feel. As Steve the Glue sort of, like fell into place in year one of Lineage Break. I forget why we were making jokes about turning horse hooves into glue. But for some reason, it was when we were looking at Lumbering Steed the other day, and for some reason, I did not put two and two together that Steed sounds somewhat like Steve. And Lumbering Steve then led to the only other Steed in the game being Trusty Steve. And so I like that name a lot. Let me know how you guys feel about Trusty Steve. Steve loves it. Look at his beautiful smile.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a compliment, being trusty.
Yeah, sure.
Who doesn't want to be trusty?
Yeah, but you were also calling me Lumbering Steve.
Well, Lumbering...
that one is a little bit more painful.
Lumbering Steve is when Steve's being sad, He's stomping around. Glucifer's a good one, too. That is true. We'll get to that when we have to do another Halloween video.
Yeah.
It's on the docket. But anyways, welcome back to the show. Thank you guys for hanging out. It's been a hell of a week. We're in the busy season, Steven.
Yeah, I
busy
know.
Season, Steven.
Oh boy. Yeah, lots of spoilers, lots of news. We got a ban list.
It was crazy. It's I think actually the biggest ban list since the creation of the ban list.
I remember talking with you and Trevor about it.
Yeah.
And you guys were like, surely they're not doing anything. And I was like,
wouldn't
it be crazy if we got a new Proxy Vault card?
Well, it's
and then exactly the opposite of everything. New Proxy as Vault card, and then two ban announcements.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild.
I find it very strange that right before a new format comes out, they make this meteoric change to the ban list, and we'll talk about that today. But it's definitely not what I expected, because there's 300 new cards coming out. There's all of these cards in the set that we've now seen that seem like they were designed specifically with Icebound Slam in mind. Because the Grand Archive developers, they're not stupid. They understand what good cards are. They made Icebound Slam. They're not like, wow, why are people playing this card? It's crazy. Yeah. They know that card was good. And maybe it's a little bit more ubiquitous than they thought it would be, but there's no way that they were like, this card's not even good. And so they printed some things in HVN with Icebound Slam in mind, assuming that it was going to, get pretty powered up by Fractal of Polar Depths. But just making the decision to ban it outright does seem kind of crazy to me. But we'll talk about that a little bit. We also, of course, are in the midst of spoiler season. Today is Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, Chad. Happy Valentine's Day, Steve.
Happy Valentine's Day, Cam. Happy Valentine's Day, Chad.
Kiss all your best friends on the lips. That's what they deserve.
Open mouth kisses for the
kisses for the homies. That's actually the entirety of what our spoiler video is. And if you want to catch our spoiler video, it is today. 2 p.m. If you guys are real good boys and girls, maybe we'll talk about them a little bit on the show. That's my way to keep you watching. Is it working? We're also the last day of spoiler season, though. So we have the spoiler season in its totality to talk about as well. There's a couple of cards that we're missing, but we're missing very few of the higher rarity cards. We're missing a lot of commons, uncommons, rares. But we are missing, I think, as of right now, and chat, you can correct me if you know the answer, or God Mike Trevor can correct me if he knows the answer. But I believe that we are missing two URs. You out there in the world have not seen two URs, but one really. And I think it's 4 SRs. Because I think it was 6, but then Shinja got one.
Is it 4 or 3? Or 5, I guess. 4 or 5.
It's either 4 or 5, yeah. I don't remember. So 3 of those are the spirits. They said that we're going to see those at Melbourne for the presentation. So if you discount the 3 spirits, which of course we don't know what they do, and that is a big deal, but we can assume they're spirits and they probably draw 6 cards and have some text. I think we're missing like 1 or 2 SRs and then 1 UR. So it's like 3-ish high rarity cards, and usually those are the like format defining cards, right? Unless your name is Erupting Rhapsody. So yeah,
I see why they banned that card.
yeah, it all makes sense now,
Yeah.
right? We said on the show, I said on Twitter, I was obviously very wrong about what Dao-Chan did in some regards. But I really did think they were going to bring back harmonies and melodies, and they did a little bit. It's actually a lot less than I thought.
It's a lot less, but like some of the harmonies and melodies that exist in the set are
they're
pretty good.
Yeah, they're good.
So like I could see like a lot of like the common, uncommon, rare slots also being common or melodies or harmonies.
There's also a lot of like really disgusting ways to fuel your graveyard now too. Yeah, there's that like there's a Fantasia that says each player at the end of their turn does the Hasty Messenger thing. There's one that on play draws a card, discards a card. So yeah, lots of ways to fuel your Erupting Rhapsody. So I think it makes sense that it's banned. But yeah, so we've seen most of the, I would say, meat and potatoes of HVN, so we can talk about how we feel about the set towards the end of the program. But Steven,
Cameron,
before we get there, it's ban list time.
It's ban list time.
So anyone who did not catch the ban list, that was last Wednesday. I don't know. It was a few days ago.
Monday?
One of those. I don't know.
It was Monday.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. On the ban list, there were some pretty huge changes. Starting at the bottom, let's see if I can do it from memory because I don't have my phone out. The most important and upsetting thing is that Polaris has been moved to Category 1. I get it.
Sorry for your loss.
They did say in Polaris moving to Category 1, there was another card as well. But in Polaris moving to Category 1, that obviously that card's very powerful. I don't know if you guys have played against Polaris yet. It's pretty good. It's very good for anti-ally strategies, and there is a lot of stuff in HVN that is also very good against these ally strategies. So Polaris is now on Category 1. They're keeping an eye on it, but for my sake, thank God, in that ban list update, they did note that Polaris might be a candidate for that Stone Skill band treatment, where it gets a bit of an errata. And I think the errata would obviously be toning down its ability to board wipe, but hopefully not toning down its ability to put Cosmic Bolts into your deck, because I think it would be really cringe if they took the way that Ari wins games away from Ari. Also, Lost in Thoughts was the card that was put to Category 1. I'm sure you guys have played against these water control decks. Nico, Ari, Sylvie, whatever, playing Lost in Thoughts. You know, it gets to the point where if you're not tracking your floating memory for stratagem or whatever, you're just like, yeah, okay, end step, I'll play Lost in Thought, I'll draw 8 cards. And that, like, is pretty game warping, so understandably they're looking at that one as well. But the biggest changes to said ban list. Both cards in Category 2, Baby Gray Slime and Icebound Slam, are, as of Monday, 2/17, are going to be moved to Category 3 and banned in standard play, which is it's pretty huge. Baby Gray, I don't see as much of a shock. It was already at Cat 2. Icebound Slam is making the jump to Cat 2 and then making the jump to Cat 3 immediately. And we started talking about this a little bit at the beginning of the show, but it's a pretty huge change. This is the biggest change to the ban list since the creation of the ban list, when Avarice and Reckless Conversion were banned. It changes a lot. It eliminates a lot of decks from the format. It makes it really hard for certain decks to play the game, like Nico's down pretty bad without Icebound Slam. And it's on the back of HVN coming out in 3 weeks, which is a 213 card set or something, which is obviously going to be a huge change to the format. So yeah, I it's crazy, like actually mind blowing that they did this, where they're making maybe the largest change to standard in a year, right before 200 cards are added to the format as well.
Yeah, I know a lot of people aren't happy with the I don't know, aggressive approach to
Sure.
this. I appreciate it though. We've been, it's been like 2 months of this horrendous water RE meta
Mm.
where it's just like Icebound Slam, you polar depths stratagem, and I appreciate the wanting to be on a fresh plate going into HVN.
Mm.
And the same thing with Baby Gray. I think it's too generic of an effect where it enabled too many strategies to just like not do anything and win the game, like the
Right.
Resurgale deck. I know it wasn't really played a lot, but like still playing against that was like kind of like just not fun. It was like your opponent's playing solitaire, and no matter what you do, it didn't really matter much.
Yeah, I mean, cantrips are pretty powerful, and especially in decks that can leverage that sort of slow speed, really did slow down a lot of games for sure. And again, like it seems like everything these days has been sort of toxic towards the Allies decks, and even though a lot of the Allies decks were playing Baby Gray, it also was very good against the Allies decks. Obviously, it's a 1/1 that replaces itself that has intercept.
Right.
It's pretty big, so. Yeah, I don't know. I'm somewhere on the fence about this whole ban list situation. It's good and it's bad. I think it's hard to look at this change to the list in purely a positive or purely a negative light. Where I agree. I think Icebound Slam and Baby Gray were both pretty ubiquitous across the format. But I said a while ago on the show when they put Baby Gray to Cat 2 that I felt like the existence of Baby Gray was better for the game than not, because it was the least impactful in the Slimes deck and was way more impactful in non-Slimes decks, which I understand is a problem for game design. But it Baby Gray's sort of like ubiquity in other places allowed those decks to be played, and I think removing it didn't really hurt the Slimes deck, which at the time was the top dog, but it did hurt the other decks more than it hurt Slimes. So I think we're still sort of in that spot, and I think maybe a little bit more tempered about Icebound Slam than other people do, where I understand the role that it was playing in the format, and I understand getting hit for 8 on turn 1 does not feel good. But maybe removing it is a little bit too hasty, especially with HVN coming up, where we've seen so many cards that are like pretty effective at combating Icebound Slam. And something that I always worry about as a TCG player is that part of the reason why I like the Grand Archive ban list is this sort of like slow creeping up of the category list, where you can have a pretty good idea when a card is going to get banned. Like Baby Gray has been sitting at category 2 for 2-3 months now, something like that, or was it 1 month before that? Steve, you with me?
Mm-hmm.
But Icebound Slam is like pretty quick. It's gone from Cat 1 to Cat 3 in the span of a week. Obviously, they are still technically moving it to Cat 2 before it moves to Cat 3, but like people that have spent $40 on these Icebound Slams and in the span of 7 days are out $160 playset.
Yeah.
I think does feel really bad and does set a sort of dangerous precedent that I was hopeful that Grand Archive wouldn't do, in that they give you a little bit of lead time before they ban a card like this. But this does feel like kind of a rug pull for people that were sitting on Icebound Slams and maybe had picked them up recently. So I do feel for those people for sure. Anybody that was like, oh, this water deck seems cool, I'll pick it up, and then boom, next week it's banned, you're out $200. Does feel a little bit sad.
Yeah.
So I do think it's a good change for the format, and they cited being more aggressive than usual to prepare for the national season, and they want nationals to be like healthy and new. They want HVN to like really make a splash and not people to fall back on these Icebound Slam decks that have ruled the format for the past month or two. So I think that's good. I think it'll make the format a lot more healthy, and it'll make the game more interesting to play for the highly competitive nationals and world season. But I do, worry about this being a thing that they're willing to do a little bit because, I don't want them to ban $50 staples overnight.
Yeah. I can understand the fear of, spending the money on these expensive cards. However, I also understand, like, the precedent of, like, not wanting to also ban powerful cards, because then, like, at what point do you stop banning these powerful cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's into the point where everything is just banned.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not not a fan of the Trenton Bollinger approach of I want every deck to be playing vanilla 2/3s and us fight for board with vanilla 2/3s. That's not exactly what I like about Grand Archive. So
I don't want to get to the point again where we're playing 2/3s and that's the standard, right? It's like I played through FTC and DOA, and I gotta say, I think the game is much better than it was then.
Yeah, it was different for sure, and I don't think that I hated it. Obviously, we were still playing the game, right? Mm-hmm. And I played a lot of Water Allies back in the FTC format, but I'm like way happier to be doing powerful things and being able to do powerful things. My opponent being able to do powerful things. That if we remove all of the powerful things from the format, it starts to feel a little bit stale. I'm not saying that Icebound Slam or Erupting Rhapsody or whatever are on the level that I want cards to be. Surely they're already over that line.
Right.
I just, I worry about the precedent as well. So, but also on our ban list, in a more positive light, we also got a new Proxy's Vault card in Reciprocity, which is a hard thing to say, and I think hopefully I'm pronouncing it right.
It's not even Reciprocity. It's Reciprocity Dormigia's Call. Like,
Reciprocity.
Why is this
call.
such like a big mouthful?
Yeah. I see an exclamation point from Poro in the chat. I would be stunned
if
Poro was not responsible for this.
He's the one that made this
card.
I
would be stunned if he was not in the kitchen cooking this one up. But it is a little bit of Tonaris support, which is pretty good. Steven, you want to give us a read?
Sure thing. So Reciprocity, Dormigian's Call is a norm element, Regalia weapon, Guardian Sword, memory cost of 1, Tonaris bonus. As long as you control 2 or more domains, you may activate this card from your material deck. Tonaris bonus. Remove a durability counter from your Reciprocity. Rest it. Negate up to 1 target upkeep trigger. Then, if you control 2 or more domains, summon Automaton drone token.
Whoa.
This is pretty cool.
I think it's good. It's not Polaris. It's got similar text. It's not Polaris.
It's not Polaris.
We've seen from the ban list, maybe Polaris is too good. So this might be a happy middle ground for Tonaris. Yeah, it seems like they're pointing Tony into the domain angle, which I think is cool. It is the thing that he does that nobody else does. We've seen him see some success as like an allies deck and in some ways a control deck, but it seems like domains is sort of where they want to point him as a champion identity, which I think is cool. This effect is really powerful. I mean, at the very worst, this is a free to activate 1 power 3 durability sword, which is not bad. But also, it has that ability to remove upkeep triggers, which is pretty strong with certain upkeeps in mind. I don't know. I'm not a Tony player, so all of you Tony players, send us your lists and how excited you are about Dormigia's Call. But I don't know exactly which upkeep triggers you want to go the extra mile for. Tony has traditionally been an Eternal Kingdom deck, and that upkeep is like fine. So like I don't know that you particularly need Reciprocity to remove that upkeep trigger. We might see the advent of stuff like Keep of the Golden Sashes, which is a pretty powerful effect, but does have a pretty punishing upkeep trigger. There are, of course, lots of other domains in the game that have super punishing upkeep triggers as well. Stuff like the original domains from DOA that all don't allow you to materialize cards, which is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
I don't know if that any of those are particularly good, but I don't know. Maybe there's a sick Camelot deck somewhere that Tony can leverage. So definitely pretty interesting. We'll see if it makes a splash. It is, again, like sort of similar to the ban list. Pretty crazy, I think, to add a card like this, which doesn't seem like it's overtly super strong. But right before a 200 card set is going to be hard to see the impact of this card.
Yeah.
Because obviously we're getting 200 new cards in the set, and it's not like we're going to have a whole format where Dormigia's Call is the only new card, where people are going to be experimenting with it a lot. So I think it'll probably be slower to make an appearance than something like Polaris that was pretty immediately ubiquitous in the format. So I'm interested to see where our Tony players go with it. Somebody in chat asked, can this stop wither counters? It cannot stop wither counters. That is not an upkeep trigger, unfortunately. So yeah, it's just turning off domains as of right now. It is cool, though, that it does name target upkeep trigger. It's not like upkeep trigger on a domain you control or anything, right? It is target upkeep trigger. So we could, in the future, get upkeep triggers that allow Tony to leverage this, which I think is really interesting as well.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the plan. Maybe DTR, there's a bunch of cool upkeep stuff coming. Who knows? We won't worry too much about DTR until HVN is in the rear view. But
I really like this card. And like in my thoughts, every time Proxy's Vault card has come out, the first like reactions to it have been tame, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, someone comes up with a list that's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I do want to note, sorry to blow up your spot, Jimmy, but Jimmy Lee is probably who I would give the trophy to for best Norris player, the creator of that.
The Sick Domains deck?
Yeah, Assembling Ancients Domains deck is Jimmy Lee. And I think it was like maybe an hour or two after this card was released, I saw Jimmy post in Merlin's that he was like buying foil Guandus. And I was like, oh, he's cooking. He's doing some Tony cooking. So maybe you guys can keep an eye out for Jimmy Lee returning to the domain world. And maybe, if anyone's going to break it, he would be my bet. Yeah. So, but yeah, really cool. Huge change at the end of the season. And we will get just one opportunity, Stephen, to see this new format, Icebound banned, Baby Gray banned, Dormigia's Call legal before HVN. And that is going to be at Ascent Melbourne, which is in 2 weeks now, I think. Yeah, 2 weeks from now will be Melbourne. So maybe we'll see some sweet Tony decks there. We'll see what our AMB meta looks like without the Boogeyman Icebound Slam decks, which is tough. I like really don't know who shakes out on top because so many of the top decks are playing Icebound Slam or Baby Gray. Yeah. Do you think the RE stratagem deck has any legs without IBS? I don't know. I think I've always been of the opinion that I think polar or fractal polar depths is a bad card. Because if you don't have Icebound Slam, that card's just like truly terrible. It takes some real doing to get cards into your graveyard, and so I think that there will be some like mill strategies, but you can't do what you could do before, where like basically every water deck you just slam 12 cards into it. You slam your Icebound Slams, your Fractal Polar Depths, and your Stratagems, and they basically all do the work for it, or for you. And so now it's like if you're a deck that's just playing like Fractal of Rains, that's not going to be enough to fuel these super fast penguin kills. Yeah. So I think that we will see a whole lot or a whole lot less of those penguin decks. I know surely there are ways to build your deck to still use penguin, and if you are playing other cards to support it, penguin is a pretty powerful card, but it's not a card like Icebound Slam. You can't just like put penguin into your deck and have it function by itself. It does need those enablers. Right. And we are getting actually a lot more enablers in HVN, but I think before HVN releases for Melbourne, it's going to be pretty tough to play a mill deck.
Do you think like the Sylvie variant has legs, because there is a lot more
Yeah.
tools in that deck to create a fractal of Polar Depths win, I think.
Yeah, I think if anybody's sticking around, it's going to be. I think Nico's going to be okay. She's going to miss Icebound Slam, and it's going to be a pretty huge hit to her. But she still gets to play this like very tight control strategy with the prevention that Guardian allows her to have. I mean, Mage Bane, Lash, and Vapor Jet Shield are still insane cards, right?
Yeah.
And you still get to leverage those. But I think you're right. I think Sylvie can stick around as well. She was the sort of unique Fractal deck in that she had no out to Nullifying Lantern. And so when people play Nullifying Lantern against Sylvie, she just says, okay, I'm not going to kill you with these penguins this game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to kill you the old-fashioned way with these big turtles that I put buff counters on. And so she's still going to be able to do that. So she has, it sort of like works in the opposite direction now, I think, where her A plan is probably going to be beating you to death with these big turtles. But she has the B plan that if that doesn't work out, that means that you were able to clear her board. And if you were able to clear her board, her penguins are turned on, and then she can penguin you. So she still gets to play on those multiple axes.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be pretty good. But I think the banned Icebound Slam was effectually a ban for Stratagem and Myriad Ice as well. I don't think that card is really going to be worth it without the not only the damage, but the mill support from Icebound Slam, because it's way harder to stratagem your opponent for 20 than it is to stratagem them for 9 after you've already hit them for 8, right? With your Icebound Slam. So very interesting. We'll see how that shakes out in Melbourne. I think Ari-san is really, really busted for our 3-week format. I think
Are you talking
quite
about
good.
The wind?
Yeah. Wind, Astra, Arya. Her worst matchup was the water decks, and so they are now factually dead, and I don't know what she loses to. So play Astra in Melbourne. I think it's quite good. And we'll see if that remains true after HVN comes out, but at least for this tournament, I crazy that I would say that, but I think she's pretty good.
Cleric player saying cleric things.
Whoa. Hey, all I'm saying, usually people are pointing to their deck because they want everyone to think that they're better than they are and be like, my deck's not even good. But I think that deck is good, so you should play it. It is hard, though. So don't run it down. All right, Steven.
Cameron.
I'm going to pull out my phone.
Oh, he's getting his phone out.
You do some vamping for me.
Oh, boy. What are we doing?
Well, that's our ban list.
A ban list is here, and we have some other stuff to talk about. Maybe.
Well, I don't know if you guys have heard, but there's a whole spoiler season. Lots of cards.
Spoiler season
that have been released.
There's a lot of good cards.
And so there's some cards to talk about. There's a couple that I wanna touch on, and we're gonna make Trevor, creator of ProxiesCodex.com, who's running our boards today. We're gonna make him work real hard, by jumping around and talking about things, giving him no time to prepare.
Right.
But I think the notable thing about HVN is, as we mentioned earlier, we have seen 95% of the high rarity cards. We've seen almost all the URs. We've seen almost all the SRs. And I think that is, I guess, not necessarily where all of the best cards are from the set, but it is, I think, the most archetype dictating cards are usually in SR UR. Like the way that Weebs wants you to build your decks, they're pointed to you by these SRs and these URs, right? And so I think it is interesting to talk about those, and then maybe we can talk about HVN sort of as a whole at the end of spoiler season, so that in a few weeks we can talk about HVN having all the cards in hand and all of the things that we were wrong about. But first of all, shout out to TalkGA. We have received our Divine Relic for the set. She's hot.
This card's ridiculous.
It's bonkers.
This is called Art of War.
Oh, I get it. Like the book.
Like the book. It's a Norm Regalia item. Mage Scripture. 0 memory cost. Divine Relic. Players can't declare attacks with allies that enter the field this turn. While paying for a memory cost, you may banish Art of War to pay for 1 of that cost. Wow.
Whoa.
I think this card would have been mid without that last sentence.
Yeah. It's an interesting one where so this effectually removes haste from all of your allies, anyone that plays Magic. This means that you're playing Magic the Gathering, which is something that I have moaned about surely several times in the past. It's been less so relevant lately as they've been doing a better job of giving control players control tools. But removing the ability for allies decks to threaten you after you wipe their board is nuts.
Yeah.
It's like truly insane.
Yeah.
It's something that we've said, and I'm sure that you guys have felt, that removing allies like Polaris or Season's End is coming out, Anger the Skies, whatever cursed board wipe you want to play in Grand Archive, usually is really punishable by these allies decks, because if you wipe their entire board on your own turn at slow speed, on their turn they just play more allies and they punch you to death, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if they've gotten you like close, you're at 20 life, they've dealt you 19 damage, and you wipe their board and you're like, oh, finally I'm safe. And they just like play a 1/1, they kill you because everything gets to attack on his first turn. So I think that alone does make this extremely powerful, and really, really bad for the allies decks. And then I agree that that alone might not be worth your Divine Relic slot, because in a lot of matchups, it's not going to help you, and sometimes it's like too little too late, but it has this like little baby temporal spectrometer effect at the bottom that says when you're paying for a memory cost, you can sacrifice this to pay for one of that cost, so it does effectually replace itself, sort of like a Grand Crusader's Ring would. Mm-hmm. Not on the turn that you play it, but somewhere later down the road. So I've heard people in our like own small circle refer to this as the control deck's Grand Crusader's Ring, and I think that's a good way to put it, is that for the slower decks, this is going to stem a lot of bleeding, and then the slower decks, once that is not necessarily a threat to them, can sacrifice it to, cash in for a resource or whatever. Of course, I'm always thinking with the Cleric Lens and in Dao Chan's Recollection deck, 90% of her material deck cards cost 1, designed to play around Craggy, Fatestone, whatever it's called. But it does mean that since most of them cost 1, Art of War is going to, 100% get you some value if you're playing Dao Chan. So yeah, just really, really powerful card. I think personally this is probably the best Divine Relic that we've got since GCR. I guess like probably pretty close to 2 out of 5 Quicksilver Grill, but I think it's really strong, and I think we'll see some real play. I think it's the first time since Fractured Crown that people will be really registering this Divine Relic in their deck.
Yeah, I definitely think this is probably the most played Divine Relic after GCR in this format.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty big player in the format, and it does make me like really worry about what allies are going to look like in HVN moving forward, where I think HVN specifically feels really hateful towards allies players. Mm-hmm. And sort of it's like hard to see how things shake out without having cards in hand, right? But to me, what it sort of feels like is there's so much effective ways to deal with allies in recently, but most notably in HVN, but also like Polaris is a great example of this. I think Goja must be broken. Yeah, like I'm not a Tamer player, so I like haven't put 2 and 2 together. I haven't been like building Tamer lists, but like Goja must be broken, because they're putting so many steps in place to stop people from taking over the game with allies, that surely there is some Tamer deck that they were just like, this deck is a monster and we need to put some things in place to stop people from killing you with Suzakus or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, we'll see.
Maybe it's not even Goja. Maybe it's like something from DTR.
Yeah, maybe it's all forward facing. I mean, like that's really what I thought about Polaris, which is obviously a very strong card for Ari, but came out in a time where allies were not like super prevalent, and I was like, oh, they're giving us a board wipe on a stick in your material deck. There must be some some real allies coming, and then they announced it was a Tamer set, and I was like, oh, that makes sense, and now we're getting this. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. But speaking of Suzaku and Goja and Divine Beasts,
we finally got our 4th and asterisk final
for sure
Shenju. This
Big
is
turtle.
Fabled Sapphire Fatestone. Is a water element. 9 memory cost Regalia item Tamer Fatestone with Immortal and Spell Shroud. Goja bonus. At the beginning of your recollection phase, each player puts the top card of their deck into their graveyard. Goja bonus. Whenever one or more cards are put into your graveyard from your deck, put a quest counter on your champion. You may remove, you can rest it to remove 9 quest counters from this, from your champion. If you do, wake it up and transform it.
You know that Sylvie deck we were talking about?
Yeah.
I think that Sylvie deck is, in fact, unplayable in HVN because you should just play Gocha instead.
Correct. Yeah. So when you flip over your Sapphire Faded Fatestone,
Big turtle.
it becomes a big turtle. Genbu Black Tortoise is a water element. 9 reserve cost. I don't know if that matters ever.
Probably not.
Ally, Tamer, Beast, Shenju, Fatebound, Turtle, Spell Shroud, and Taunt. Goja bonus. Pay 3, or reserve cost 3. Genbu gets plus X life until end of turn, where X is the amount of water element cards in your graveyard. Activate this ability only once per turn.
Damn.
It's a 3/9 base.
He's got that big ass, dude.
Yeah.
Huge ass.
So earlier in the spoiler season, we saw that
Yeah.
SR
Yeah.
that swaps your
Yeah.
life and your attack.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, this card sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks until you swap a 3/19.
You can also do it with Mist Resonance.
Yeah,
from
DOA.
DOA. You guys remember that fucking heater?
Yeah.
Harmony support.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're cooking. Yeah, I think Genbu seems pretty decent. I don't know. It's hard. I'm not a Tamer player. I said this before the show that if they wanted us to like give a real a reaction to how good cards are, you give me a Tamer card because I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, is this card good? I think the front side is fucked. But 2 things. It is symmetrical, so you also mill your opponent, so you risk giving them advantage. Obviously, your deck is going to be built so that you get advantage way more than your opponent. So I don't think that's a big deal, but it is something to consider. So I do think that this like front side Goja ability is like pretty good for these like water Sylvie decks that we've seen crop up. Allows you to play Fractal Polar Depths. Allows you to play these big turtles, not this turtle, but the other turtle,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So I think it is really good for that strategy. And then maybe Genbu is a way to get over the finish line. But like,
I don't know. Honestly, I don't even think you're ever attacking. I'm not. If you're using this effect, it's not to attack. It's just to like, I'm going to deal 9. You're like, I'm going to pay 3 and make it so you have to double that.
right. Hey, Trevor, God Mike, is that card that swaps your power and life, is that fast or is it slow? It is fast, says Trevor. Okay, all right. So maybe we're cooking. All right.
Oh.
Yeah. So they attack you because this is a 3/9 with taunt. You say, I'll cast this thing. I'll pay 3 for Genbu. I'll retaliate for 50. Yeah. And then they die. All right.
Okay. We're cooking.
We're cooking.
So you do play a little bit of that card.
But I do think you primarily don't want to be a Genbu deck. You want to be like a self-mill deck, like the current Water Sylvie deck. And then like, if you fall into a Genbu, it's really good. It's a 3/9 taunt at the very least, right? It's very hard for them to shift. So.
It is something to note that a lot of the other Shenju say like it's like 2-sided. Like Phoenix is like whenever a point of damage is dealt to a player.
Yeah.
This is when you mill a card from your deck.
Yeah. It is still symmetrical.
It is symmetrical for the effect to mill,
but it doesn't count.
It doesn't count your opponent.
Yeah, thank God. It doesn't make the like mill mirror impossible. Because then your opponent's like, well, I wanted to play this cunning strategy or whatever that new mill 2 card is.
Yeah.
But it fuels my opponent's Genbu. I think that makes sense. I think it seems cool. I think water self-mill strategies are cool if they're not broken. So hopefully we're in a world where they're not broken. Exciting for those Tamer players out there.
Did we talk about this one?
I don't know. We can talk about it.
Yeah, we're going to talk about
It's sick. You guys like Rye?
Do you guys like Rye? Because he's been unplayable, I hear, until
What's
now.
the arcane sport?
So we have this new card called Harbinger of Lightning.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked about this last week. Sorry.
Arcane ally, mage, tamer, human. 2 reserve cost. As long as you control an arcane element Shenju ally, ignore this card's element requirements.
You're never doing that.
You activate it. Surely this card is not being played in Goja. Class bonus. On death, banish Harbinger of Lightning and a card at random from your memory. When you do, as a spell, deal X damage to target champion, where X is the total reserve cost of the banished cards. Sorry, this is a UR. Kind of hard to read with all the lightning around it.
She's so cute, though.
She is adorable.
She's got the red eyes and everything.
Yeah. So at worst,
your brain exploded.
Yeah, my brain exploded. At worst, you're doing. Richie's out here saying wild things. At worst, you're doing like 8 damage to this.
Yeah. It's an interesting card. I think that there's no Rye players, right? So
it's a 2/2, by the way.
The Rye community, I can't be like, oh, this is how the Rye players feel, and they're split.
Right.
There's no Rye players. Nobody plays Rye.
What about Leo?
It's like, yeah, when was the last time fucking Leo played Rye? Same with Byfall, right? Byfall got an arcane spoiler yesterday, and it's like, you don't play that deck anymore. Don't lie to me. It's like Roka. That's the only person I know that's playing Rye. But anyways, I can't say that the Rye players are split on this card. I can say that the community thinks this card is bad. I think that like almost everybody that I've seen say anything about this card is that it's bad. But they're not Rye players. And I will have you know, chat, that before my tenure began as a cleric player,
You were a Rye player.
I was a Rye player. And what I can say that I think Harbinger of Lightning does is maybe not good enough. However, I think it does give you the out to play Rye like a normal deck. I think that Rye as a strategy is actually just like kind of giga broken. And he like should have ran the last format with all of these like water control decks. Because the water control decks always die to Rye. However, the problem that Rye has is due to the way that Stormseer is built, he requires you to hard level, because basically the only way that you would get cards near banished before HVN is by hard leveling. And so you need to get your 5 arcane cards into your banish so that you can start casting your Careful Studies for free so that your deck actually functions, right? However, that requires you to go -5, which is really bad. Usually -6 because you're playing a stupid Dungeon Guide. And so when you're going -6 as this big high damage control deck or combo deck, you lose to Frostbind. And so it's really hard for you to beat any of the water decks when you lose to a single piece of interaction, of which they're playing like 10. So he has been holistically unplayable for a long time because he can't beat Frostbind. And turns out water decks are good. He has a tough time when people play Tidal Lock, right? But I think what Harbinger of Lightning hopefully does, and some of the other cards that we're not going to dwell on, but some of the other arcane support, allows Rye to do, is maybe play a strategy a little bit closer to something like Fire Merlin, where he can, instead of having to hard level for 3 turns in a row, he can focus a little bit more on card advantage, on floating memory, because he now has more tools to banish cards. Obviously, we have cards like Voltaic Sphere, but we now also have like Shattering Discharge and the card that we saw yesterday that's like fixed Reckless Conversion. So he has a little bit more ways to get those arcane cards into his banish zone later in the game, so he doesn't have to worry about hard leveling literally every level. And also, the addition of cards like Harbinger of Lightning allow him to do really high damage numbers without necessarily needing to be a super high level. If you just like play your Harbinger of Lightning, you get her off the board either by, sending a spell ladder, casting a cremation ritual, whatever, and then you banish a Advent of the Stormcaller, you deal your opponent 17 damage, and then they probably die. But that is something that you can do when you're level 3. You don't need to be level 15. So I think, at least how I want to look at Rye in the HVN meta is a little bit closer to a card advantage deck like Merlin. Having outs to deal shit tons of damage with Harbinger of Lightning, but also having outs to maybe being an Empower deck with Harness Lightning and Heightened Spellcraft. And if you can get to Ride level 3 with like a pretty healthy influence, Empower a bunch, play your first Advent, use that to banish a bunch of arcane cards, and then you get to play the rest of the game as Rye, but with a little bit more influence than you normally would. So, and Art of War is quite good. Yeah, chat says that as well. True. Art of War, very, very Rye-pilled. So, yeah. I think that card's cool. Is it good? I don't know, but I think it's going to give some new space to the Rye deck, and people are going to do some experimenting. Something that I did remember, we did talk about it last week, was Annihilation, but you asked why the reserve cost on Genbu matters, and that's a great example. Can't be annihilated, so that's cool. But we did already talk about that one. Yeah. Is there what else did we miss? Oh, we did get a brand new card last night as well that we can talk about.
Oh, yes, we did.
Just trying to hit on URs and stuff, chat. If there's anything that you want us to talk about, let us know. But we don't really have a itinerary, so we're just trying to talk about like URs and SRs that are pretty substantial to the game. So last night we got a UR. I talked I don't think on the podcast, but I talked with Steven and some other people about how, and this was before Zhang Zhao came out as well, but I talked with Steve and some other people where I was like, man, it's really fortunate for me with this being a cleric set that there's not a whole bunch of like high rarity cleric stuff. It seems like there's no cleric UR, there's no cleric CSR, and so it's like it's looking like I don't have to spend as much money as I thought. And I was like, that's great. And then one day after I said that, we got Zhang Zhao, which we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about. She's super cool though. Which is a cleric CSR, and it looks great, and I think that card's really cool. And then last night, we got Zhan Yu, Fate's Premonition, which is a cleric UR, main deck cleric UR, which makes me want to die. It is a 4 reserve cost water, unique Fantasia cleric spell, class bonus. This card costs 2 less to activate. As John? Is that like the fake character? Zhan Yu enters the field. Choose a card name. Cards with the chosen name cost 2 plus X reserve more to activate, where X is the amount of Fantasias you control.
Wow.
This card's nuts.
Yeah. I was going to clown on him, but I know he's not watching, so I can't.
This card's so nuts. And yeah, we have some local players that don't really like control decks or taxes, and they're not super thrilled about Zhan Yu. I think this card's sick.
Yeah, this card's great.
It's like, I don't know, it's kind of bonkers, I think. So it costs 2 once your class bonus is turned on. And it says at minimum, cards with the chosen name cost 3 more to activate, because she does count herself, obviously. Which is like pretty backbreaking, but still castable.
Yeah. Right.
You can still pay 3 more to activate a card, but once you have 2, 3, 4 Fantasias in play, and this is like all name Storm Slime, he costs +7 for you to activate. You're never playing that fucking card.
How does it feel that your first wife is killing your second wife?
I know, it's so bad into Cosmic Bolt. Dude.
I will name
like,
Cosmic Bolt.
Shit on you. I need Poro. You in the chat? I need somebody to tell me if I'm a bad judge or not. And no, don't say yes, you're a bad judge. Al's in the chat. Perfect. Al, I have a judge question for you guys. Because I'm pretty sure that I'm right in how this works, but I saw somebody in the Arisana like competitive chat on main court today say the opposite. And so I was like, the way that Arisana Astral Zenith works is she says You may pay 0 rather than paying a star calling cost. But she does not say that you. It's not a alternate activation cost. It is modifying your activation cost. And I believe how the rules work is that I modify as the active player, or I guess it doesn't even matter, as the person casting the spell. So I guess in that moment, I'm the active player. I am casting a Cosmic Bolt. I apply my Arisana ability to make it cost 0, and then my opponent applies taxes on it. Any extra costs are ignored. See, I hope that's wrong, because I did very much lose a game at regionals where several judges told me that that's not how that works. So I'm very, very confused. This was in relation to Orb of Choking Fumes, which I believe you do still have to pay the additional one. So, interesting. Her ability override star calling cost can still be modified by activation cost modifiers. Interesting. Anyways, regardless of your Arisana ability, it is still quite good against Cosmic Bolt. Because even if the first one's free, the rest of them are not. But, yeah, I'll follow up with you about that, Chad. I'm not so sure. And if that's the case, I want my win at regionals back. Thank you very much. But yeah, either way, this card's pretty nuts. I think it's a unique, which makes it odd, and is a little bit narrow. So I don't think this is going to be like a 4 of stable or whatever. But it is a card that you're like definitely, I think, going to play some copies of in Daochen. Probably that's it. I don't think this is really an Arisana card. But there are certain strategies that I think this is just like pretty backbreaking against. Things that are singularly focused on one card, like Slimes is a great example. You play Storm Slime. Yeah. That's Fireball. The card that matters. Fireball if you're playing against Fire Merlin, or like these, Imperial Seal Merlin decks that don't exist anymore. But even if it's like a particularly difficult matchup and there's a card that you can't beat, like even though it's not usually the way that she kills you, if you just like can't beat Incarnate Majesty, you're just like, I don't know, I'll make it cost 25 or something, So I think it's very interesting, and beautiful art too. Yeah, so yeah. Very excited, great. But not so very excited that as you are, and the foils are going to be $500. So you guys know the drill. If you open a thing, let me know.
Yep.
I think the only other card that I have on my list that I want to talk about, unless chat pipes up and they're like, I'm a really huge fan of Clash of Fates. The other card that I want to talk about is Kongming, Erudite Strategist, because I don't think that we got a chance to talk about it last week.
I don't think so.
There's new Kongming level 2, which is fucking crazy.
This card is
crazy.
Sick.
It's, in fact, kind of mind-boggling to me that this card exists. Not because it's broken. It is really good, I think, and Kongming very desperately needed it. But it's very strange to me, weebs, you weirdos, why this card is coming out now. I feel so bad for anyone that bought a Kongming level 2 CSR, because they just got, like, directly punched in the face. They're like, hey, congratulations, that set that came out 3 months ago. You spent $600 on this Kongming level 2, and then I will punch you directly in the face by putting out this new Kongming level 2 that is just, like, insane. I think there is some argument, the copium for you ascetic vice players, I think that's the name of her level 2, some copium for you people, is that Kongming level 2 is still quite good. And there are, I think, certain strategies that still will want to play that level 2. If you are not planning to go to level 3, I think that old Kongming level 2 is quite strong. Because she does give you that sort of like repeated advantage, right? So if, let's say, you're playing Razor Gale, and for some reason you're playing a level 2, right? That's the sort of deck that you like want to grind, and every couple of turns you'll draw a card off of your Kongming level 2. But this new one is holy shit nuts if you're a level 3 deck. If you're like a Dungeon Guide deck, new Kongming goes galactic. Kong Ming, Erudite Strategist, is hard to read, but I think that's what her name is a level 2 Norm Champion, Mage Human, Kong Ming Lineage. On enter, banish the top card of your deck until the beginning of your next turn. You may play it as long as your shifting currents face north. Repeat this process for east, south, and west. She has 22 life. So, what this means, you banish 4 cards. They're all assigned to a direction. You're facing a direction because you're Kongming. But let's say that you had some foresight and you put a Fan of 7 Deaths into play, which allows you to change your direction. If that card is in play, this basically just says on enter, draw 2 cards, as long as you play them this turn. But I think the really insane part is that if you're a Terra Kongming deck, anyone that's played any little bit of Terra Kongming in their days, is really a deck that leverages cheap spell cards because she wants to spin, right? She's a spinner, especially in water. She wants to spin northwest for Hydro Guard Retainer, Daddy, as we call him. And so if you're playing that deck where you're playing a bunch of Rising Tides and Coriolis Wards and Terrasites and all of these really cheap things that you can use to spin your Kongming, if you go to level 2, you draw 4 cards. You have to assume maybe 3 of those 4 cards are cheap spells like that because most of your deck is made up of cheap spells. You play a Dungeon Guide. It just basically says draw 3 cards.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It's insane. It's the best level 2 that we've ever had. Obviously, it's a little bit narrow. I'm not saying that it literally says draw 3 cards. This is probably worse than Tristan level 2 that just says draw 2 cards on it, right? But yeah, I mean, if you can leverage the power that this card gives you, it's fucking nuts.
And it's till end of turn?
It's until end of turn.
Okay,
yeah.
So you do have to level that turn.
Yeah. It's very much a Dungeon Guide strategy for sure. I think that you're probably not going to Kongming level 2 without a Dungeon Guide if you're playing this sort of strategy, but it's very obvious that I think this card is for Terra support. It is for level 3 control Kongming, not for the cheaper Kongming decks that have seen some success in the previous format. But I think that's good because her Terra pool and Kongming as a level 3 deck felt holistically unplayable in A and B. And she's gotten a little bit of support in HVN as far as Terra stuff goes, but I think this is obviously the biggest sign that you can play a level 3 Kongming deck. And somebody in chat makes a great point. If you banish a Dungeon Guide off this effect, you get to play it. It's insane. So if you have your Fan of 7 Deaths in play, you give yourself 2 chances to draw a Dungeon Guide, even if you don't have one. It's pretty good. Or I guess 4 chances, right? Because you get to choose your direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just reveal the top 4. If I find a Dungeon Guide, I'm playing it. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Pretty good.
It's crazy good. Yeah, so I think she's cool. Sorry for all you Aesthetic Vice players. Rest in peace.
Hey, maybe Kongming's actually playable now, though. So
yeah, that's cool.
I wouldn't feel too bad, right?
Yeah.
You sell your $400.
Yeah, I'll buy your Aesthetic Vice for $50. CSR. That sounds fair, right? Crazy. That was crazy ones. Well, anyways, I think that's all I got.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anything else you want to talk about, Steven?
No, not really. But Poro did want to point this out to you.
Listen, I'm not the judge, all right? Toot. Okay, sure. Nice. Huh. Dude, that's crazy. 118, 2024? I just can't read. Well, I'm not going to name any names, but judges in New Jersey at regionals fucked me under a fucking orb of choking fumes. However, dude, that's crazy. Anyways, I'm cooking. Well, we'll talk about that off stream. I didn't even realize. That's crazy. Wow. That's nuts. The more you know. I've learned so much right in this moment. And you know what else I've learned, chat? That we have some spoilers coming up.
Yep.
And I don't want to give too much away. I appreciate you all watching. Our spoilers are coming up in about 45 minutes. And we're probably not going to stick around that long, but we will see you all in chat for our premiere at 2 p.m. Please watch our video. We spent a lot of time on it. It's really stupid. Hopefully you laugh. If you laugh, please let me know. It we're always worried that the spoiler videos aren't funny, but they make us laugh. It's I think it's really hard for Steve and I to laugh at ourselves, because we have self-esteem issues, but it's really easy to laugh at our friends, and I think that our friend Travis gave the performance of a lifetime. Yeah. I was cackling while I was putting the video together, so I hope that you guys enjoy it. But I do want to say a couple of things, just to reward you guys for sticking around. I think I did say a little bit of this at the start of the show, so sorry for those that have been with us the whole time. But we mentioned this a little bit in our spoiler video, and again, I'm afraid I'm not showing you guys spoilers. We got to make you watch the video. But there's been some doom and gloom on the internet about good old water Dao-Chen being good or playable or whatever. Everybody wants the doom and gloom, and they're like, well, look at all these burn cards. Wow, Byakko, or I don't know, whatever Tamer players are excited about. But I can tell you that everybody that has bemoaned Dao-Chen missing ways to end the game, I can't promise you that this is a fireball you for 15 level card, but I can say there's a pretty reliable way to get some extra damage, perhaps out of your material deck, that you can use to maybe end some games with Dao-Chen. So look forward to that. It's not all doom and gloom. I think our cards are very good. One of them in particular, I think, is quite literally broken, and a lot of you will hate it. I got to tell you that a couple of people in the Lineage Break family, some people that helped us shoot the spoiler video, have seen the cards, and there's a couple that are not a big fan of control strategies, that are not super happy about the text on some of the cards that you guys will see later.
Turns out
today.
Yeah.
If you guys like taxes.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh boy.
I was gonna say. Turns out taxing activations is
yeah, it's pretty good, man.
It's really hard.
Guys worried about Jean Yu.
Yikes.
That's all we'll say. Yeah, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. You look forward to them, but also take that with a grain of salt, because I'm bad. So if I think they're good, they're probably awful. All right, that's all we have for you guys today. It's been a great time looking at these HVN spoilers, and by probably next week, I assume we'll have seen most of the relevant stuff. I guess Melbourne is when we'll see the end of our spoiler season, so you can all look forward to that. But we appreciate you guys hanging out. Hopefully you guys watch our spoiler video. Of course, I again want to give a shout out, of course, to Weebs of the Shore for allowing us to do the spoilers. But if you guys haven't, this is the end of the spoiler season for content creators. And please, please, please go check out all of those spoiler videos from those content creators. They're all so good. I am super happy that so many people this season did silly skits like we do. They're all super cute. So make sure to go check those out.
Yeah, Dan's
really funny.
It just kills me every time. I've watched it like 3 times.
I think TM32's last night was great. I loved the True Cactus Gaming video. There's lots of really goofy stuff that came out. It's really cool to see the community come together for spoiler season. I think is awesome. So we can't wait for DTR spoiler season. But in the meantime, you guys can look forward to just a little bit more HVN coming to you in about 40 minutes. So stay tuned. If you want to check out our show, if this is your first time here, etc., we do shoot the show every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, * here live on YouTube. And we chat with you before and after. If you want to find the previous week's episode, you can find that at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, * today you will not. Instead, you will find a spoiler video in that place.
If you would like to find last week's episode, that will be up on Monday at 2 p.m.
Eastern Standard Time.
Monday.
Monday. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for hanging out for spoiler season with us, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Kisses.